Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of How to Beat the Streets podcast. And today, I got a very special guest in the building. I know I normally say that a lot, but what makes my guest special today is we actually went to middle school together.
Yes.
Wow, so she's a author, spiritual guide, the mind behind borrowed wings, a scientist. There's so much I could say. I just want to get right into it. How you feeling today, Mary Love?
I feel amazing. I'm so happy to see you and be here. So I
It's
appreciate
been a while.
it.
It's been a while. I think the last time I seen you, might have been in eighth grade, prom or something like that.
Yeah.
That's funny. So here on the show, we always get started with a quote. The quote I got for you today is, "The womb is a place where the light enters." What does that quote mean to you?
Wow, that's good. So when you think of a wound entering, right? It's open. It's just like a door. You go through that pain in your life. You go through a traumatic event, and you have to. It's almost like when you get a scratch and you're like, oh, let me put my hand on it. Let me try to figure out how to make it feel better. But for me, when the light goes through you, it's me opening another door into another part of my life, another chapter.
I like that. I like that. Okay. So if you ever felt broken, betrayed, or been through family trauma, this episode is going to be your medicine. But let's just go back for a quick second and just tell us about the Jersey girl, Mary. What was it like growing up?
Oh my gosh. So growing up in Central Jersey was good, of course, until I got to one place in my life. So I did actually grow up in a traumatic childhood, and really quickly, I do want to mention the dedication to the book, to Borrowed Wings, is to my friends because they didn't know what I was going through. So I still carried the way that I am today, just very positive forward. But so my my parents weren't together when I was born. They actually never were, but my mom and my stepdad had issues because of me being born, because I was born outside the marriage. And because of that, they separated, or obviously more issues, they separated. And shortly after he passed away, he took his life. And when that happened, I was 5, and that just completely just changed everything. And everyone in the house went through not just grief, but anger, depression, addictions of all kind, like drugs, sex, drinking, abuse, all types of abuse, and going through that and trying to navigate my essentially just doing things on my own. And it got to a point when I was actually around the time where I met you in middle school, where I was, smart enough and started to realize like what drinking was and what weed was and like, what sex was. And when I was going through those parts of my life, I realized that my life wasn't normal, my home wasn't normal, the people around, my family around me had addiction and issues, and it was causing, peril in my life as well. And it just got to the point where I it's crazy, like, think about it, but just going back and forth with like trying to have my parents do the right thing, and then like trying to but being an emotional kid, right? So it's like puberty, teenager, but also the parents that go through that are going through their own issues as adults, right? And we're clashing, and it just got to the point where one night I flipped out outside in the backyard, and that was honestly Dyfus's final straw, because they've came to the house multiple times, and when they finally came, they just took me. And I was about 15, and I was kind of scared but kind of relieved. And after that, I moved around, and through moving around, I got left back twice. Ended up in a shelter because nothing ended up working out for me. I stayed with an aunt, but it was just too urban, and like just getting into fights, like it was too much. And then I went to go live with a teacher, but then he was being very inappropriate. He was to the point of almost sexual abuse, but not there yet. So getting to all those movements, I got to like a place where I was like, all right, I'm in the shelter. I'm left back 2 years, and I need to finish. And I pretty much worked out a plan, wrote up a plan, and I attended an alternative school, caught up, graduated, And from there, I pretty much took my life in my own hands as an adult.
Whoa, hold on, hold on,
Cause
hold on. Hold on. We gotta slow this down.
Okay, sorry.
That, that was a lot. And then one, I want to, just commend you for your bravery and your perseverance for just, continuing to push through. But to go back, how was your relationship with your mom immediately after the passing of your stepdad?
My stepfather. So I was 5, and at first, I was still young, so she pretty much would she would go to work, come home, and just disappear in her room. So, I took that at first as depression, and I was like, and I'm 5'6", I don't know better, but at the same time, I was also being sexually abused, so I was dealing with that, and I was trying not to be in my house. So I kind of really never had a sit down conversation with my mom about everything that happened. I even thinking about it, maybe like as an adult I did, but it pretty much was the relationship with everyone in my house versus me was just like completely different. And keep in mind, I have siblings that come from my stepfather and my mom, right? So it's like them versus me.
How many siblings you have altogether?
I have a lot. On my
okay,
dad, my biological dad, I got 4 and 4 brothers, 4 sisters.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And from your mom?
From my mom, there's 3.
Okay.
3 more, yeah.
Because I know you're a twin also.
Yeah.
She has a lot of, ladies and gentlemen, she has a lot,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of amazing things, And I also think that just as humans, we go through a lot, and that's what makes us. I guess that's what gives us our borrowed wings, But continue.
No, it's okay. And that was really, it was tough because I imagine. I mean, I'm sure many people have been in uncomfortable situations, like at work or like in a roommate situation. It was like that. Like I was an extra in the house. No one, served me breakfast or made dinner at night. Like it was none of that. None of that existed. I had 50 cents that was left on the table in the morning, and I had 25 cents to get chips in the morning, 25 cents to get chips on the way back. And if I was lucky, a friend, Yake, or one of the people that I grew up with, they would be like, oh, split this with me, or oh, we're going to go get Chinese. I'm going to give you a few bites of my rice or something like that. So, I pretty much didn't really exist to her, right? I was just there. And as time went by, when I was older and I was at a point where I was going out so much because I didn't want to be home,
right?
Because everyone in the house, like, pretty much, they didn't want me there. But I was also a kid, right? I was out in the streets and I was allowed to do it, so why not, right? And that was when, like, she was trying to, like, reel it in, and as a teenager, like, oh, what are you doing? You're doing this, doing that. Like, you're out in the streets. But I'm like, I've been out in the streets since I was like 6, pretty much. But also at the same time, I get it. But at the same time, I actually was not doing the things that I already made my mistakes. Like, I had bad alcohol incidents. I got roofied once out in the streets. I've almost been, like, legit taken to a car, and all of that's not in here. It was just too much. Like,
that's a lot.
It's too much. But
so what about your biological dad during that time?
So my dad, I met my dad after, a little bit after my stepdad passed. So my mom would bring me up to go see him at work, and the minute I saw him, I knew he was my dad. Like, the moment I saw him. Like, it was just like he looked at me, I looked at him, and I was like, looking at him like, really?
You see this?
Yeah. And my mom was like, oh, that's my friend. I'm like, yeah, okay. So as time went by, when that was, like, revealed to me, and she, like, officially said it, he officially talked about it and said, like, you have other siblings, whatever, our relationship was okay, but it was around the time where I knew you. That time was when I started actually being able to go down to my dad's for the weekend. So I would, like, go down and come up, but it was only, like, once a month, so it was good, but at the same time, I didn't have enough time with him, and most of my conversations were, like, the car ride down, because he lives down the shore.
Okay.
So that was pretty much it. But as you know, as I said, foster care, I moved in with my aunt, who was my dad's sister, and it just didn't work out because just the area and it was just too much. And my dad pretty much ghosted my diapers worker. He stopped coming to the house to visit, just disappeared, and then I didn't really hear from him. I never like saw or heard from him until I was an adult. So.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask that question because before we get into this lovely book, I just wanted the people to have a little bit of background of, some of the things that you went through growing up. And then that leads me to this amazing book right here, Borrowed Wings. So what is Borrowed Wings?
So Borrowed Wings, also my earrings, peep the earrings I have. But
that's nice.
So the idea of Borrowed Wings is that biologically, ancestrally, spiritually, you get pieces of each of your parent, right? So let's look at that as like wings. But also you have the influence of other people around you, so other adults or teachers or whoever was that mentor person for you throughout your childhood, and they really help shape who you become, right? So I use the term borrow wings as the title to serve that I did get my wings from my parents, but I borrowed them because I've made my own wings, and those wings are different than the wings from my father and from my mother.
I like that. Okay. Was there a rock bottom moment for you? Like, I know you went through some things, but was there like one particular incident where it was like, okay, this was your straw, and you started to get into your healing journey, or this was the bottom moment where you kind of like went further down?
So this is a good question. So rock bottom going down, I'll mention. So, and I've actually I don't think I ever spoke about this before, like publicly.
How to Beat the Streets exclusive.
I know, right? So, and it's all in there, right? It's more detailed in there, but essentially, I got kicked out of my house in May 2007. And I literally was like, I even asked my mom, I was like, are you really kicking me out? Like, I'm 15, like, where am I going? So she told me to leave, and then I went to my friend's house, called my dad, and my stepmom picked up the house phone. Because, back then, we didn't have cell phones, we had house phones. So I literally went to my friend's house.
Don't age us like
that.
Yeah.
We didn't even have Nokias back then. So I called the house phone. My stepmom picked me up. She drove up from South Jersey. This is my stepmom, not my dad, my stepmom. And I stayed down there for like 2-3 weeks. Mind you, no school, right? Because I'm there and I know where else to go. And it got to the point where like my mom was calling my dad, and she's like, I'm going to tell him you kidnapped them. You're not even their dad on paper, which is true because my dad is my stepdad on my birth certificate. So going back and forth, my dad was like, Mary, I'm sorry, I have to bring you home. And I remembered, now hold that thought, a few months prior, I came home from a field hockey game, and I played, do you remember when we used to play like those like the far towns, like you know how like every, like, it would be all the towns around us.
I remember,
it'd be like Union, Newark, and it'd be like Lake Hopatcong. You'd be like, where is that? Like, so I actually played Lake Hopatcong that night, literally, because I remember the name was so weird, I just kept trying to pronounce it. I came home from that game. Now, mind you, this is October 2000. I don't even know if I can't even keep up. I don't even know what early 2000s.
05?
So,
I know 05 we was in 9th grade. 06
it was
10th.
It was 06. It was 06. Okay. I was in 10th grade. So I came home from the game, and she didn't believe that I was at a field hockey game. Mind you, I'm starting varsity. My coach dropped me off, and like, you could just call my coach. And so she didn't believe me, flipped out. Mind you, remember, drugs, and there's anger, and there's all types of different emotions involved, right? So she flipped out, and after that, she was, trying to put her hands on me, and I was just pushing her off. She's small, so I just was like, I'm not dealing with it. And then from there, she went in the room, called the police, and then said that I was trying to, like, kill her. And my voice is getting like that because to this day, I'm just like, I just don't even have that capacity and to even like punch someone in the face. And so we got into it, and then next thing I know, the cops are coming upstairs, and the next thing I know, the cops are taking me downstairs, and I look outside, and there is an ambulance there but with a stretcher and restraints to take me.
Oh, wow.
So that night I went into a mental institution. My mom, like, literally just called, like, the crisis, I think it's called, like, the crisis hotline. So I was there for like maybe almost a month, but that was the first time.
Whoa, but even though she
Yeah.
kind of kicked you out?
Yeah. But this is before she kicked me out. So she did that, and then she tried to put me back in around November, she tried to just put me back in again, and I literally was like eggshells, not even talking. I would just like come home from work, do my homework, and like, just essentially be super obedient, and like, because I was so traumatized by what happened in there, which I go into the book. But the second time when she kicked me out, I told my dad, I said, 100% you drop me off at that house. She's putting me in, I'm telling you, she's going to call and put me back. And he's like, Mary, it's all right, baby. Like, come on, we just gonna, and I'm looking at him like, all right. So we go and drop me off. And, they got into a little bickering back and forth. My new stepdad bickering with my dad. And I looked at my brother, and my brother's a day younger than me, so he's like my best friend. And I'm looking at my brother because I asked him to come, and I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to see you again. Like, I literally said it to him, and he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I know 100%. And after that, they left. Within 20 minutes, they came and picked me up again. Wow. For being a runaway. So when that happened, a lot of stuff happened there in the actual hospital. But the second time I went in, they already flagged me from the first time I went to a different facility, and they already flagged me in the system as nothing is wrong. So when they saw me the second time, they put in a note to DIFUS, like, something's going on here, because they keep putting her in.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my rock bottom, because I felt like my back was against the wall, right? So I was being held against my will, right? And yeah, as a kid and your parents, you gotta listen to your parents, whatever, but when your parents aren't right, it's like, it's not always a situation of an emotional teenager, mm-hmm. right? And emotional teenagers, it's a thing. But so that was my rock bottom. And then when I went into the system, I actually felt like I climbed out of that wound into light, which was it's weird, because you should be scared, and you should be like, oh my God, I'm going to the system. But that was my way of being like, I might be okay now. Yeah.
So when it comes down to writing a book, did
mm-hmm.
writing a book help you release some of these wounds? Was it therapeutic?
It was.
Was it? Let's hear it.
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. I had days where I would only write a chapter, days where I would just write a paragraph, and especially when I got to parts of like walking through moments of being sexually assaulted, or fighting my mom, or the moment where, right before foster care, or the moment when all those big pivoting moments threw me sometimes into an emotional space where I knew that there was some shadow work to be done, and a way for me to reflect and go back in, reread it again, and allow myself to feel it, right? Mm-hmm. and walk through it again. So mm-hmm.
Now for listeners in toxic family environments right now, what's step one to reclaiming your peace?
Removing yourself. And it's not feasible every single time, right? So like my example was perfect, where I was in the house and I had no choice, right? And I'm not saying like go call DIFUS and like I'm not saying that, but I'm saying as a child, do use your resources, like go to your school counselor, talk to them, talk to your friends' parents if you trust them. And obviously, some parents are just as bad as the other parents, right? So you got to be mindful about that. But you use that resource, or go to therapy if your parents let you go to therapy. But if you're an adult, I would say same thing, remove yourself. Mm-hmm. And the internet has so many resources, so get into self-help books, or journaling, or like I said, the same things, talking to people, talk to therapists, meditate, read books. Like my book there are a lot of things in there that make people pause and may have to go back and like reflect on their own. But books like this are what help people first see that everyone really resonates with each other, right? There's so many people that have similar stories. Maybe not everyone's talking about it, but, and yes, I'm brave enough to talk about it, but there's so many people around you that are going through things or have gone through things that they still need to process, and that's why people are treating people poorly. You know what I mean? It could be at work or home, whatever. So.
I like this quote right here. One of her most impressive accomplishments has been sharing her story. Pretty much like what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
So you credit a lot of your journey to spiritual mentors. For folks who don't know, what is a spiritual mentor?
Oh, so a spiritual mentor is, or guide, whichever way you want to put it, is somebody that serves to be, so it's, imagine you're praying, right? You're praying or you're meditating, and when people pray, they're talking to God, Jesus, Allah, whoever they're speaking with, right? And that is, in that space, their spiritual guide and mentor, right? They may be asking for things, or they may be hoping for things or wishing for things, but in my case, mine was a little bit different. I didn't always pray. Sometimes I did, but sometimes it was just a matter of me, like, in a closet because I had nowhere to go and I was crying and I just had my eyes closed and I was like, please keep me safe, or please help me get through this. Those parts of my life, I had so many parts, and I talk about it in both books, actually. I talk about where something will happen and I just, like, the premonition comes, like, this is what you need to do, or stop doing this, or go in this direction. And I'm not saying drive yourself crazy and listen to every single thought that comes to your mind, because sometimes they're negative, right? But those moments, I knew that I needed to pivot or change or focus on something based on what I felt very strongly intuitively, and with the guides in my life.
Thank you for sharing. And how do you find, or how do you know when you could trust someone? Especially, like, I feel like when you're in, like, a vulnerable state, most people think, like, when someone is in a vulnerable state, they're easy to, like, open to different people, or, someone could offer you something, a home, hot meal, whatever, and you're like, perfect. But if you're in a vulnerable state, how do you know, like, someone is trustworthy?
I love this question. I've never been asked this before, but it is so important because I found myself in so many, like I just told you, one time I got roofied and I was just trying to just have a good time, and the next thing I knew, I couldn't trust that person. So
what is getting roofied for people?
Oh, getting roofied. Oh, sorry.
And what is that experience like?
Yeah, oof, it was terrible. But like, imagine just having a normal drink, right? Or like alcohol or water, soda, whatever. And then next thing you know, like, you pass out, or you start feeling loopy, or you just start like, and you're like, how is this possible? I had one drink, right? So just like somebody putting a drug in your drink. Wow. And yeah, that was just terrible. And thankfully I was like loopy enough where I actually got up and like ran out of the house. Instead of, and I thank God that I was able to, because I was with a guy, right? So that's dangerous, a small girl like me. But in regards to trusting somebody, so this is where psychology comes in, right? And neuroscience. And I'm very thankful that I've just been able to always kind of like pivot. Well, let's backtrack. I have been able to read people better because of traumatic responses, right? So I've been able to, I walk on eggshells, I'm reading body language, I see how people are, and I'm still like that today. So,
good skills.
And those are skills to pick up on. So I'm not saying walk on eggshells, but definitely just learn the basic psychology of like watching people's eye movements when they're talking to you, seeing their body language, seeing if they're getting too close or saying inappropriate things, looking at you inappropriately, right? Especially women, but men too, right? Men and boys, everybody. It needs to be.
You forget about us. They forget about us a lot.
I do. I think about the men because right now it's men's mental
health,
mental health month. So I gotta
give us a little bit.
I think about the men too. So
I like that body language, how they're looking at you. What else? How do you know when you could trust someone?
And then definitely the questions that they're asking you, right? So the things that they want to get to know. Sometimes, and you could tell by the way people ask questions that sometimes it's in like a, I actually care about you and I want to make sure you're good, or like, I want to take this information and I'm going to use it against you. So, and, somebody like a kid or someone, young, you definitely gotta, maybe talk to the parent that your mom doesn't talk to or your dad doesn't talk to, right? But you know that kid and the parent has a structured house and it's safe and there's no weird behaviors happening. So that sort of thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, thinking about your journey to mindfulness, and I know you got into yoga, meditating, was that the start of you finding your peace, getting closer to, just overcoming everything that you've experienced? What was it that you used to start to, look at your situation, overcome it, start to, move to that positive light?
Absolutely. It was the moment where I learned about yoga and meditation. So when I was living in the shelter in Bridgewater, it's actually called Brahma House, Visions and Pathways. It still exists. I'm actually a advisory council member there.
Full circle.
So, but yeah, it's crazy. So, and it's beautiful. But somebody came there and taught yoga, and we were just talking about the kids, right? Sometimes the kids do not want to learn.
Yep.
And they're like, what is this yoga downward dog, right? So like they're looking at the teacher like, what's going on? And I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit around because it looks like exercise to me. She got a mat on the floor, like let's go, let's do it. So I sat through the session, and she had these cute little cards, and it talked about like meditation prompts related to the position, whatever. And I think because I was one of the only people that were interested, she just gave me the deck and left me a mat and was like, you can have this. And I was like, really? And she goes, yeah, you can have it. And I was like, okay. And I used that as a tool every morning before I would go to work. And you know what I was doing? I used to knock on all the, so in Brahma House it was like 8 girls to a room, so bunk beds.
Okay.
And I was on like the bottom corner bunk, and I used to just tap all the bunks. It would be like 5 a.m. wake up with no alarm. I'd be like, get up, let's do this. So we would all, whoever would wake up, we would sit in a little circle.
Wow.
And we would do our little meditation and try out the poses, and it was so, at the time it was just silly, and it was us trying to just learn the positions, but it changed my life.
Wow. So how does one yoga, or even meditate? Because I've tried, I've tried, and I've sat down and quiet, and then I start singing rap songs in my head. I start thinking I'm like, wait, this is not working. So just a quick guide for people like me out there.
Yeah.
How do you start to meditate? What's some tips you could give us?
I would say I love it. It makes me laugh because I was the same way, and I would sit there and some of the girls would be laughing and we'd be on the floor laughing and shit. But so for me, as an adult, when the internet and everything, I learned these meditations where you actually, when you're when you got your eyes closed, you're actually visualizing things and you're moving things in your body. So, for example, one of the meditations I teach is where you're grounding yourself. So literally, you take everything in your head, you imagine everything as an object, like a book, a person. Don't worry, a person's not dangerous, but imagine all that. And just you're throwing it down your grounding cord. And then when you throw it down your grounding cord, you get rid of your grounding cord. All this is visualizing. So you're busy, right? And that's the idea for me. And I think in this world, day and age, everyone's on that dopamine kick where everyone's on their phone. And that is a type of meditation I find works for people. So doing that work and visualizing the clearing and the protection of your energy and all that. Mm-hmm.
I like that. All right. Now, is there any other thing that you did to, just overall shift your mindset? I wrote a book too. It's called How to Beat the Streets, and one of my chapters is called the power of changing your mindset. So it's called Change My Mind, Change My Life. So is there any other thing that you did that changed your mindset, which ultimately led to your life being changed?
Yeah,
You
I
know,
would
yoga, meditation.
definitely. So, I mean, back to those self help books, right? Or
Okay.
go into workshops, or like, you ever see people be like, "Oh yeah, positive affirmations on YouTube. Do them,
Mm-hmm.
try them." There's books that there's a book. There's a lot of books. Like I can't even go through them, but there's one
Top
book.
two self-help books
Ooh,
that helped you.
that's a tough one. One is it's like a workshop book, but it's called Claim Your Power.
Okay.
I think his name is David Gibb, and I'm sorry if I say it, but it's a black book and it's white writing.
Can't miss it.
You can't miss it. So Claim Your Power. That book was good because it really made me dig into shit. Wait, can I curse? I just realized.
Yeah, you good.
Okay. I'm like, hold up. It really made me dig into stuff that I was just like, ooh, I don't want to write about like, bad habits that I have. And, there's so many. And then another book that I like, it's a little bit more on like the spiritual religious side,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more about connecting with yourself. It's called The Seer.
Okay.
It's by Lars Moll, and he actually has 3 books. I actually didn't even finish the other 2, but I like the first book so much because he talks about going through physical ailments, but then also changing his energy and doing that energetic work, and he actually he just healed himself, and it's a true story.
Wow.
So your mindset, everything you consume, right, you gotta be able to cleanse it back out. So that's big.
I'm learning a lot here. All right. What is spiritual atlas?
Ooh, okay. So spiritual atlas the world.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep in mind, no one on this earth knows everything, right?
Right.
So like, I'm not the guru of nothing, but wow, that was double negative, but you get what I'm
I
trying
get
to
what
say.
you're saying.
So atlas being the world, but spiritual atlas meaning mindfulness and openness to the different experiences in the human experience, right? Because sometimes some people find themselves in Nepal, in a Buddha, become a monk or training with them, and then sometimes people are in India, sometimes people are in Africa, in Nigeria, right? And then sometimes people are in Italy at the Vatican, right? Or sometimes people are just doing like a ceremony in Arizona, a cacao ceremony, or ashwagandha, or there's all these different things that people are doing. So I look at myself, because I'm just a one-person company for now,
Mm-hmm.
but spiritual atlas being, I'm open to all of that, and I work openly, not just when I'm communicating with people, but I come with the open mindset and not forcing any sort of like religion or spiritual, practice on what I do.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the website earlier. I'm like, the website is amazing, and I love the work that you're doing. Who's the ideal person that needs to get to know Spiritual Atlas and needs to be on that website, sending you an email? What's that ideal person?
That's a good one. I would say the people that can't stop the chatter in their mind, right? The people that are around people all the time. So the teachers, the policemen, the firemen, the people that are constantly getting drained in their work, in their line of work. I mean, even COs, right? Like in a correction facility, they're stuck in that place all day, right? Those are the types of people, or people that have been through trauma and don't know how to manage it as adults or kids, teenagers, whatever, any age, honestly, because everyone is, I think those are, to me, the ideal types of people, and people that are open-minded. But if they're not, be ready to be open-minded on the the journey and the sometimes the shadow work that you got to do for yourself.
Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Being an author of 2, what has it taught you about your identity and your own power and just the power of your story and sharing and just giving back in this way?
I would say it has taught me / helped me really stand firm into the person I am and really be accepting. And thankfully, knock on wood, no one has come back to me in a negative space about my books. I mean, there are people that have said like it's a lot, it's really raw, or it's a lot. So it's really helped me just stand and be like, this is Mary Love, and take it or leave it. And to be honest, no one has left it. Every single person, people at my job, people that I grew up with, such as yourself, or new people, my neighbors, everybody is accepting of who I am, which is great.
And then when it comes down to borrowed wings, what do people walk away with when they close that last chapter, that last page?
Ooh,
What are they
good.
walking away with?
I'm laughing because one of my friends read my book, and it was funny because at the book release party, she was in the corner reading the book. Like, she bought it and just went in the corner, and I'm like, hello. So, no, it was great. But when she finished reading the book, and her other friend too, they both were like, firstly, you can't even tell that that's what you've gone through. Like, looking at Mary today, right? I would have had no idea, which is, I'm very thankful to hear that. But at the same time, what you get from Borrowed Wings is you get something that you resonate with, right? Men and women, I believe there are so many pieces in there that I've had people come up to me and say, like, I've had issues with my mom too. I've had issues with my dad too. I've had people leave me. I've had issues with addiction. I've my own self had issues with addiction. So it's just good to know that there is light on the other side.
Not alone.
And you're not alone. And there's also a way to, after getting out of it, after climbing out of it, there's a way to recover. So.
Wow. So, such a powerful young lady, man. I'm honored to be sitting here next to you. For the viewers now, I figure by this point in the interview, I think the people that watch my show will want to know, how is your relationship with your mom and your dad
today?
Now?
Ooh. Oh, good question. Every question is a good question. Now you hear me, I'm like, good question. So my dad, ironically, he was at my house last week. We had a bottle of Brunello together.
Wow.
So my dad and I are great. Of course we talked it out. Of course. Early 20s we did. But I was also a little, I was also going through it in my 25, 26. And today, let me backtrack. When I first moved into my house, so I bought a house a few years ago. And
Salute.
Thank you, because that was like such another big thing for me. So when I finally bought my house, he walked in my house, and he just looked at me and teared up.
Yeah,
right
I'm
away.
about to tear up.
Right away, and I was like, Dad, we still got a bottle of wine to drink. Like, what do you? So it was just good to know. Like, he's like, I knew, and this is what he said to me in my house. He said, Mary, I knew you were gonna be okay. But he goes, I never in a million years would have thought that you would have persevered the way that you have. And he goes, even though I'm sorry, I am sorry for everything, but he goes, but you didn't even need me. And I was like, no, Dad, I needed you. And that was kind of like a moment for us. And, he apologized, and we're good.
Reminds me of that quote from the beginning, like the light. All right, what about Mom?
Now, Mom, now, mind you, when I was 18, I was like, all right, I'm technically out of the system. Let me, see what it's like to connect with her. So I tried to connect with her about 4 times. 18, 19, early 20s, mid 20s. I think the last time I spoke to her, I was 28. And, it's just the time and the damage. I don't want to say the word damage, but the drain and strain and wear and tear on her body, on everything, and because of everything that she's done to herself, she's not the same person that I'm having a conversation with, even back before. So I got to a point where it was just non-value added for me. Imagine every time you talk to someone, they're literally attacking you at every angle and mentioning every person and thing that you're just like, what do I do, right? Like what I say, you walk away. So it's been a while, but mentally, I wish everything well for her. I do, all the time.
So. I like the positive spin. That's what this show is all about. It's called How to Beat the Streets, and that just means, if it's not the streets, it's just any kind of trauma, any kind of adversity that people are going through. And I feel like I'm so excited to get this interview because I always, seeing what you've been doing on social media and things like that. And I'm like, oh, she's perfect. Like, she beat the streets. And it doesn't have to be the streets, even though you definitely beat the streets because you was out there, you figured it out. So you just was a model person to have up here. And my next question, what do you tell someone who feels like they were born in chaos and they're destined to stay there?
Ooh.
And I actually have 4 students that I'm working with that's in, they're in foster care. And even for me as a teacher, I'm always like, I say certain things in the classroom. I'm like, well, what would your mom say right now? And I'm like, it's a lot of those moments where I'm reading a word problem, and I'm like, it's a problem about family, and I'm always like thinking about these students. So, and actually, someone to watch the show, and that's why I take this show so serious because I know those views is not just. It doesn't matter if it's 100. That 100 could be one that really needed this message. So that's why I ask questions like that. Someone that's growing up in chaos right now, and they feel like, well, this is it. This is my life. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to remember who they are, and more than anything, let's use my story for an example. No one came to save me, right? No one came to save me before foster care, during foster care, even after foster care. I built my adult life by myself. Ooh. And my eye was on that prize. My eye was on the prize of like, I'm getting out of foster care. Even before, there's got to be a way out. I kept looking. I'm like, there's got to be a way out of this situation. My home situation was just terrible, and then I went to foster care, and then I was like, all right, I'm all right, but this is all right. And then as the things happened, my dad left. I moved and got left back. I was like, okay, now. Gotta go. And I just kept thinking, Mary deserves what Mary deserves. Mm-hmm. Mary deserves a chance at her own life that she's gonna step in a room and say, I did this. Mm-hmm. And that, even just remember that, because no one's gonna build that life for you. No one, if they're not coming now, they're not coming tomorrow. And that is something I just had to kept saying to myself, like, I am the most powerful person in every room I step in. I have something, I always say this, in my arsenal. I have my adversity in my arsenal. Mm. And you use that to your advantage to say, I'm going to get this degree. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to go get this house. I'm going to, more than anything, I'm going to work to heal myself. And even if I don't know how to, I'm going to navigate resource, YouTube, therapy, talk to people, friends, like, there's so many people in the world. There's so many resources, but you got to do that for you. You got to look in the mirror with yourself every day. And if you got to stare at yourself for 5 minutes and be like, yo, you are that bitch. Or, sorry, if it's a guy. I think somebody else like...
that guy.
Yeah, you that guy. You that guy. You would be like, yo, I'm that man. Like, that's me. That's me right there. I'm him. I'm him.
I'm her.
Oh, is that this? Okay. I don't know the lingo these days, but okay. So, I'm him, I'm her, but you really got to do that. Like, really, go in the bathroom in school, do that shit, and go right back to the class and be like, all right, let me finish up this math problem or whatever I'm working on. So...
She's dropping gems, ladies and gentlemen. So what brings you happiness now?
Oh gosh, so many things. So as you see, I'm always smiling, and I was just telling Romeo this, like, I kind of always been like that, but the smiling piece and just being happy is that I wake up and I know that the life I'm in today, I created that. I went to school for what I wanted to do and felt was smart enough for me to do and work, for me to just have stability in my career. And I choose the food I eat. I know my limits. I feel physically good. I go to the gym. I do things, like I'm doing all the things that, for example, in foster care I couldn't do, right? I couldn't work out. I couldn't eat whatever I wanted. I couldn't just jump in a car. I couldn't just log into a laptop. Those are such little things that people aren't grateful for.
I love that.
And every single day I'm like, thank God. Like, even when I'm at work, I'm like, yo, we got a huge coffee machine, but it got latte options. Like, it's silly, but I'm like, this is where I'm at. Like, I'm in a place in my life where these are the things that I have, and I'm beyond grateful, and I took those steps through that door to get there. I don't know why I keep stopping.
Nah, I like that because you deserve it. And, like, it makes me smile hearing it, because it's just like, that's one thing I would love to spread to the world, is like that level of gratitude. But sometimes it's like you have to go through something to understand it. Like I had a brother who was incarcerated, and just talking to him on the phone on a daily when he was incarcerated made me like hang up the phone, go outside, and like, wow,
Yeah.
the store. That's
Yes.
that's you know that's it's great to be able to go to the store. It's great to be able to call my cousin and say, "What you doing? I'm coming over right now." Pick up a basketball and go to the park.
Yes.
And only through talking to him on the phone and hearing, you have 30 seconds remaining, I was like, oh wow, so these are that sometimes just what we go through that makes us, appreciate. But I want people to appreciate without having to go through, something traumatic. Where can they find Borrowed Wings? Because they need to find it ASAP.
You could find it on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes & Noble. So, and then also bookshops.org. That one's really cool because you could, if you make like a little login, you could literally link any library, bookstore in whatever like is affiliated with it. So, for example, I could support one of my local bookstores and then buy my book on there. So It's kind of cool.
I like that.
Yeah, that's like a cool little, all the book nerds, we all know about that. But those are the main spaces, and of course through spiritual outlets if you want a signed copy. So.
Make sure y'all get in tune. Anything else you have going on where people can follow you? They're going to want to follow you after this journey.
Yeah, so I've, a few things. So, and again, like you said before, it's the little things in life, right? So I am working on a poetry and essay collection book, but I'm not moving as fast on it as I thought I would be.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a little bit of poetry, but so that should be coming out I think sometime this year. Work has been crazy, which I'm thankful for, but work's been a little crazy, so it's like, but that, and then I actually do plan on hosting virtual yoga classes online.
I'm signing up.
Yeah, so, and don't worry, we ain't gonna go too crazy. We ain't gonna be like, doing acrobats on day one. And, and then I do guided meditation courses, and I do, like, nights workshops. So I have one coming up June 18th, I believe. It's on my website. But, yeah.
And there you have it, folks. So you don't have to be born into light to live in it. Sometimes healing looks like borrowed wings. Fragile, maybe even scarred, but powerful enough to carry you through. Mary Love, thank you for stopping by How to Beat the Streets and sharing your grace. And of course, we got a little something for you.
Thank you. Oh, I love it's red.
We like to keep the theme going. Yeah. So this is, and I also have a signed copy of my book, How to Beat the Streets.
Thank you so much.
Check it out. It's not as thick as yours.
It's all right.
It's made for teenagers. I want to put that in the bag.
Thank you so
Couple little
much.
gifts that I thought about, for you. So that's for you. Thank you.
I appreciate
and I'm
it.
still in these.
I was gonna say those are for
me.
you. I gotta make sure I sign them.
Ladies and gentlemen, Borrowed Wings. Make sure y'all check it out.
Yeah.